Designing a logo is a key step in the growth of any entity, from YouTube channels to clothing retailers and from TV corporations to chain superstores. The logo is one of the centrifugal points, a key component in expansion and recognition. Designing a logo, therefore, is a monumental task. It has to be instantly recognisable, distinguishable from other brands, but also has to represent what the company stands for. Arguably, car manufacturers have the greatest challenge. When someone mentions the name of a car manufacturer, one of the first things that probably comes to mind is the badge, and that's the whole point of it. These things have to be put on the front and rear of every automobile a car manufacturer makes, so it better work. So, what's in a car badge? Car badges have been a thing for a long time. In fact, they've been a thing pretty much since the invention of the car itself. But what is the oldest car logo in the business? Well, technically, it's Peugeot. The iconic lion has been trademarked by the company since 1847, but technically it wasn't used on any of their cars until 1906, which they didn't even start producing until the 1890s. The logo was created back when Peugeot was a steel producer. The lion supposedly represents the quote-unquote quality and fierceness of the manufacturer. That may have been true when it first appeared, and hey, until about 30 years ago, but let's face it, when you look at Peugeot's recent endeavours, it doesn't really accurately reflect anymore. I think we can agree that, yeah, it's a pretty awesome logo. While their logo hasn't stayed the same for the whole run, it has always prominently featured a lion somewhere on the badge, so there are points for consistency. I would give their most recent logo a 7 out of 10. I'm going to rate each logo as I go along, just to give the video a bit of a personal touch. But as I said, 7 out of 10. It retains the iconic lion from back in the day while giving it a modern metallic appearance, though the font is a little simplistic. And let's be honest, the imposing figure does not reflect the crap that Peugeot pushes out today. One car badge that has barely changed at all since its inception is that of Bentley. Since being founded in 1919, the logo has stayed, well, the exact same. Keeping in line with its original goal of building aircraft engines, the badge prominently features birds' wings with a large B at its centre. To be honest, I don't know why I added this thing, because there really isn't anything to say at all about this logo. It's simple, it's instantly recognisable, and it hasn't changed for over 100 years. It's timeless. I really do love this thing, and I hope it doesn't change for a good while, so I give it a 9 out of 10 because hey, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Another logo that has remained largely unchanged is that of Ferrari. Since being born out of Alfa Romeo's racing division in 1939, the prancing horse, known in Italian as Cavallino Rampante, has been the centerpiece of all products from the company. Supposedly, the iconic horse comes from the Air Force legend Francesco Baracca, who painted a similar looking horse on the side of his planes. When Enzo, the guy behind the entire Ferrari company, met the pilot's mother, she said he could use the horse on his cars to bring them good luck. I think that's a cool origin story, and it perfectly explains why this thing exists. As previously said, the logo has remained unchanged, however there are two versions, the rectangle and the shield. The shield is the icon of the racing team, while the rectangle is the icon of the road cars. However, each logo can be found on either side of Ferrari's cars. The three stripes at the top of course represent the Italian flag, and the SF stands for Scuderia Ferrari. I'd give this one yet again a 9 out of 10. The striking colours, the iconic stallion and the stylised font of Ferrari all make for a great logo, and I love it. A logo with a similar story to that of Ferrari's is their rival, Lamborghini. The bull has been used by the manufacturer since its inception back in 1962 and relates to the time when Lamborghini himself visited a ranch and supposedly saw the quote-unquote sheer dynamism of the strong and imposing animals. What resulted was this badge. Of course, it has seen changes over the years, with a bit of a strange period right here in the 70s, but the icon of the charging bull has been the centerpiece of Lamborghini's cars for almost almost 60 years, willing to do battle with Ferrari's stallion. It's arguable that the influence of the bull has had an even stronger influence on Lamborghini's cars, with a lot of his automobiles being named after types of bulls or things to do with bulls. I give this an 8 out of 10. The charging bull is iconic, I love the shield appearance, and the black and gold make for a fantastic colour combination. BMW has had a logo without much change for over 100 years now. While yes, the 2020 logo is a bit of a leap away from what has become ingrained into the image of the BMW brand, it still retains the same shape, the inner checker texture and the lettering that was first seen all the way back in 1917. It started out with both gold lettering and a gold border, which it kept for the next few decades until 1953, in which these elements were changed to white, which I believe was a smart decision, making the logo much cleaner and much more modern. Then, with a few changes to fonts and borders here and there, the logo stayed the same for 67 years, until, yes, 2020, in which a more contemporary look was brought about, appearing more as a vector graphic than a true badge in my opinion. However, while I would have liked to have seen the original logo move on into the future, I honestly don't hate this logo much at all, at least not as much as some other people, and here there have been far more drastic changes to motoring logos in history. But being that I am rating the most recent iteration of the logo 4 out of 10, I really think the traditional BMW logo could have easily translated into the modern market, and it didn't need this much of a change. At least keep the black, guys, but hey, it's not a lost cause. This neatly allows us into the next section. What about those brands that have seen some huge changes with designs over the years? Mazda is a prime example of such a company. They never seemed to be able to settle on what they wanted. They began with a rather bland logo, which was just the company's logo in stylized handwriting, which was what a lot of other manufacturers started out with. However, in 1936, they introduced this little number with 3 lines forming an M in the middle. There's actually quite a lot of symbolism going on here. Firstly, the 3 M's supposedly stood for Mazda Motor Manufacturer. Secondly, they represent the flow of the river in Mazda's hometown, Hiroshima. And thirdly, the long extensions of the M on the side represent the wings of agility, speed, and the ability to soar to new heights. It then went through another couple of iterations before arriving at this, a very soft and elegant take on the Mazda M to launch alongside Mazda's first proper passenger cars, and in 1975 introduced this simple lettered take on the Mazda name. The 90s saw a couple of similar yet completely different iterations of the logo until 1997, in which we reached the logo we have today. A more mainstream logo in my opinion, featuring the metallic sheen and a return to the winged symbolism with the, well, wings. However, while I do like this modern logo, my favourite is far and away the 3M's logo from the 1930s. While yes, it wouldn't work as a logo today, at least as it is, it just looks so unique and it really stands out amongst the crowd. The current logo gets a 6 out of 10. It looks modern and clean, but it really doesn't stand out, like, at all. Still, the symbolism does make an appearance, which, yeah, is kind of cool, I guess. The Ford Motor Company on surface level seems to have had a very rocky history when it comes to their logo, but when looking into it you will notice a common theme throughout them all, and that is the Ford text itself, which is someone's handwriting. However, contrary to popular belief, this is not Henry Ford's handwriting, instead the work of the company's first engineer, Childy Harold Willis, first printed in 1907. The first attempt at a logo was rather convoluted, but logos around this time were all very complex anyway, so it wasn't out of the ordinary. It then went through a number of radical changes throughout the next couple of years, most of which retaining the original signature Ford print. There was a metallic effect, there was slogans, and sometimes nothing but the logo itself. They also experimented with different background shapes, such as ones mimicking American footballs, and even this admittedly snazzy take take featuring a triangle and what appeared to be wings. Then in 1917 they introduced this logo with the Ford text being surrounded by an oval. They later modified it to have the oval be blue and the text being white, and the modern Ford logo was born. Of course there have been changes throughout the years, such as in 1961 when the oval was compressed further, and in 1976 when a metallic border was added. 2003 then saw the introduction of the modern Ford logo, which is still used to this day. Personally, I believe the 1961 take was superior. I prefer solid colours more than gradients and more complicated effects on logos, and I know a lot of other people do. I think it just makes it stand out more. I feel it looks more easy on the eye and it looks more professional. Still, a logo recognisable to all but those living under a rock, and the modern one gets a 7 out of 10. But let's get a little controversial. Volkswagen has a cultured history, not in a good way, not in a good way. In terms of the logo, it's similar to how Ford's came about. The iconic V and W stacked atop one another has always been a staple of the brand's products. However, what surrounds those letters has changed a lot over the years. This is the first attempt from the 1930s. It looks cool, something looks off if I just move that over there. Just get that. And, yeah, it's a swastika, alright. Surrounded by cogwheels and a spinning propeller, it sure looked different and would have fit for the time and the political landscape. But maybe it's best that we move on. We'll do that. Since then, the logo has seen many changes over the years, such as continued experimentation with the cogwheel idea, boxes being periodically added, etc. However, after launching the simple blue and white badge in 1967, the rest of history simply saw the company mess around with things like font thickness, border thickness, placement, colour saturation, shadows, and sometimes 3D effects. But the key thing here is the fact that the core idea of the V and W being represented in a blue circle hasn't changed for over 50 years, and then we get to 2019 in which the whole thing is inverted, text blue, white background, and it looks okay. It's similar to BMW's current attempt. The core idea still remains the same in the most part, but looks just different enough to cause a riot to many hardcore fans. 5 out of 10 because I'm only looking at the most recent logo. The original logo could have used a touch up. I mean, it's getting a bit old at this point, but I feel like this was a little bit overboard. I don't really understand the whole fascination with these minimalist logos. Sure, they look cool on paper, but I don't know, they're just off. Our final logo, while not changing very much at all in the last century, has a lot of symbolism and is completely timeless. Alfa Romeo. Everyone knows this badge, but the meaning is misconstrued by most. The whole thing can be split in two. On the left, the red cross is a symbol of the city of Milan, Alfa Romeo's hometown. On the right is a snake with a man coming out of his mouth, apparently symbolising rebirth, and is a symbol of the Visconti family, an old family heavily tied with the history of the city. And no, it is not a fire-breathing dragon, and no, it is not a snake eating a small man. And since these two symbols appeared in the very first iteration of Alfa Romeo's badge all the way back in 1910, they've stuck. With a few changes to fonts, colours, materials and backgrounds over the years, the overall composition of the logo has stayed constant until we arrive at this rather clean and modern looking take on the logo first seen in 2015. This logo is easily one of the most recognisable and individualistic we've looked at today. I think unlike a lot of other manufacturers, Alfa Romeo shouldn't attempt a drastic redesign of their badge. It could potentially ruin what is a beautiful logo. A logo so beautiful in fact that it gets a clean sweep of 10 out of 10 from me. These logos have all seen changes, big or small, over the years to keep up with the times and the evolving world of technology in the industry. Being that these are usually the first thing associated with a brand, making sure they fit what said brand strives for is key. Of course, we have only taken a look at a sliver of the hundreds of logos out there. I'd love to do more parts of this concept, and while I'd love to take a look at each and every single one of them, leave suggestions for what logos you'd like for me to look at first in part 2. Thank you for watching that, with a very special thanks to Conradson and Jonas, who are very generously donating at the highest tier on my Patreon, not to mention everyone else donating too. Just £1 a month is an amazing help. And I also have a Discord server and an Instagram page, links in the description below. Again, thank you for watching and take care.